Well, it's a nice evening out here in Maryland. I'm a little northeast of DC right now, but we'll be heading back south later tonight. I decided to do this intro to the next video. I started loading up an Arch installation. I did my standard desktop, or I should say window manager installation, and to my surprise, Joe's Window Manager, or JWM, was no longer in the Arch repositories. Well, it got moved out of the main repository into the Arch User Repository, or AUR. So I'm going to move to openbox since it's in the main repository, and we'll give it a try and see how it works out. Another item I noticed, I looked at the Slim Display Manager, which was hasn't been worked on since 2013, I think it was, or 14. It's been a while. People have been saying it's dead, but when I actually looked at the files, this is the Slim Fork Display Manager, which is actually being worked on right now, having fairly constant updates. So I'm going to go ahead and use that instead of XDM like I've done before. So this will be an interesting install with openbox and Slim for the Display Manager. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, let's do a quick summary of what we're going to be doing here because we're going to go through this fairly fast. There's other videos on making a Virtualbox setup, and I've done other videos. And our purpose here is going to be openbox. So we're going to be setting up our virtual machine with two hard drives. One's going to act as our system drive, and the other's going to act as our data drive. So we're going to try and emulate a realistic multi-hard drive GUI setup that you might have on a real computer. We're going to give it 4 gigabytes of RAM, 4 processor cores, and 128 megabytes, the maximum video RAM that you can normally give in a VirtualBox. Eventually, we're going to be using Bridge Network, but we're going to start out with NAT. Because of the way that the Arch installer works, you're not going to be able to install anything unless you're using NAT because it has its own time synchronization. Like I said, again, we're going to set up two hard drives. One's going to be SDA, 32 gigabyte. SDB is going to be 64 gigabytes. Obviously, these are smaller than you're going to find in real life. Anyway, SDA 1 is going to have an EFI partition, a swap partition, and a root partition. SDB is going to have swap partition. Swap partitions are a whole other discussion. We're going to use two swap partitions because some people do use them. Whether you need them or not, that's questionable. But anyway, SDB2 is going to be the home directory, which takes up the rest of the hard drive. Most of the setup is fairly common. There are lots of, like I said, there are lots of tutorials out there, and we're going to go fairly quick. I'm going to pause at some specific spots, though, for more explanation. So starting with openbox, we're going to create a new virtual machine. We're going to give it a name. We're going to select the Arch ISO file, and we're going to set 4 gigabytes RAM, 4 processor cores, and EFI. At this point, we are not going to create hard disks or virtual disks. And it'll give us a warning about this. We're going to accept it. Now we're going to go into settings. We're going to do our standard general setup stuff. Give a slight explanation about this particular build, at least at this point. Since we are going to be using a GUI, we'll set the memory to max. And now we'll create our hard drives. We'll give it a more, well, I guess this name's good enough. And we'll create, or we'll actually choose this drive. You see it's been added. Now we'll create a second drive. and we'll choose this drive. And both drives have now been added. So I said we're going to leave our networking on NAP. We're going to go to Bridge eventually. Now we'll go ahead and launch the virtual machine. So we're going to first go to full screen, and then we're going to increase magnification so you can actually see what we're doing. Let's try that again. Wait for it to finish booting up. And we are in the Arch install image at this point. Let's go ahead and clear the screen. Now we want to check if we're getting a time sync from the NAT network. Without a time sync, this is not going to work. So that needs to be yes when we type time date CTL. Next up, we're going to look at our disk. We're going to use fdisk L, which is what's recommended in the Arch install guide, at least at this point in time it is. We're also going to use ls block or lsblk. Gives us the same needed information, different actual information, but what we need, you get either way. We're going to be using cfdisk to format. So we'll launch cfdisk for SDA1, which is our system drive, our 32 gigabyte drive. I'll set it for a GPT partition. Remember, we're going to create 3 partitions on this drive. The first one is going to be our EFI partition. Our next one is going to be our swap partition. And the final one is going to be our root partition. It should already be the right file type. We're going to save changes by writing to the disk. You have to type yes here, and then we're done with this drive. Next, we're going to use cfdisk to partition our second drive, our 64 gigabyte drive SDB. Again, GPT partition. You only need one EFI partition, so we don't have to make an EFI partition on this drive. So we'll start with the swap partition. We'll clear the screen again. Now we need to start mounting these drives and these partitions on these drives. We can fdisk to see what we've created, or ls block. Oh, yeah, we're going to format these file systems. So first we'll format the EFI partition with makefs.fat and then makefs.ext4 for our root partition, and for our home partition, same thing, SDB2. And we're going to turn on our swap partitions with make swap. Next, we need to mount the hard drive. So our root partition is going to be mounted to MNT. In this, we're going to make a folder called home, where we will mount our home folder, our SDB2 partition to. And having used make swap to create the swap partitions, now we're going to activate them with swap on, both SDA2 and SDB1. Now we need to run packstrap with the K option to download the key file. This is something that's showed up recently in the Arch ISO image. Wasn't there before. Now we just wait for packstrap to finish loading the programs we've requested. These would be base, Linux, the VI text editor, network manager, grub, and EFI boot manager. Once that's done, we can clear the screen again and we can change root into our new system, which is set up at mount. Okay, one thing I forgot to do was set up the fstab file. So I'll do that now before doing the change root. I need to use the gen fstab program, and then I'll review the file it made with the cat program. The storage spot will be mount slash etc slash fstab. So we use the arch change root command to log into mount as root. First thing I'm going to do is use the link command to create a link between our user where we store our locale settings and our home and our etc folder. For me, the locale is going to be US and Eastern. This is mainly for time. Now we're going to sync up our hardware clocks. Take our system to hardware clock, and we're going to set our system to UTC. Next, we want to edit the locale.gen file. We're going to scroll down, find our language, and we're going to uncomment that line. We're going to use the UTF-8 format. So ours is US English. Once that's done, we can run the locale-gen command. Now we're going to modify some files in our etc directory. First thing we're going to do is echo our language, which you can see up there is en_us.utf8. And we're going to write this to our etc slash locale.config file. Then we want to echo our name, in this case Archer for this system, and this goes to the etc slash hostnames file. Then we want to edit our hosts file in the etc directory and set up our local host as well as our named host. Now we want to turn on our network manager using systemd systemctl enable. This will make it available when we try booting into our actual system, so we'll actually get a network connection. Then we want to set the root password so we can actually log in. Now we're going to set up our automatic booting or auto start. So we're going to create a directory EFI in the boot folder, and then we're going to mount SDA1, which remember is our EFI partition, to that folder. Then we're going to run grub install. So basically our target's the x86-64-bit system EFI. Our bootloader ID is grub. And our EFI directory is /boot/EFI. Yeah. Next, we want to create our grub configuration file. And at this point, we should be ready to exit our change root environment and reboot our system. Okay, that was our super quick Arch install. Again, covered other places, including my own and other people's channels and all over the place. If you have questions, go to the Arch install wiki page. And next time we're going to configure our install probably just as quickly. And then after that, we can actually jump into getting openbox working and then getting Slim working. So we look forward to seeing you then. Next video coming soon. Thanks.